The stars had always looked peaceful from Earth, tiny twinkling promises of wonder and possibility. People would sit on porches, rooftops, or lie flat on grassy fields, staring up and dreaming. For centuries, humanity told stories about aliens, imagined galactic empires, and speculated about beings more advanced, more powerful. But no one expected the day would come when those stars stared back, and they didn't blink, they didn't wait, they screamed. It began quietly, a message. Or maybe a plea. An unmarked signal, weak and nearly drowned out by cosmic radiation, reached Earth's deep space listening arrays. At first it was dismissed as noise. Some speculated it was a pulsar, others thought it might be static from a black hole accretion field. But there was something too patterned, too human about it. It was begging. Please, to any who hear this, we need help. They're taking us, burning our skies, drowning our cities. Anyone, please. The scientists who decoded it were stunned. This wasn't a test. This wasn't from Earth, and it wasn't a prank. The signal was coming from a small planet beyond Kepler 452b, one Earth hadn't even mapped thoroughly. It was coming from a race not listed in any databases, not even theoretical ones. They called themselves the Al-Khari. They didn't ask for war. They asked for sanctuary. For months, the message repeated. It echoed through humanity's stations, its satellites, its warships. Governments argued, corporations bid, religions prophesied. Social media exploded. And somewhere, in the middle of this swirling chaos, a 17-year-old boy named Elijah Harris boarded a city bus in Baltimore and changed the course of history. He didn't look special. Jeans, hoodie, headphones half in, half out. But he noticed something others didn't. A woman stepped on the bus, mid-30s, white, exhausted, her hand resting gently on her very round belly. No one moved. Not until Elijah stood up, smiled quietly, and offered her his seat. She hesitated, then sat, murmuring a soft, "Thank you." Elijah just nodded and leaned back against the pole as the bus rolled on. When she got off 2 stops later, she turned to him, reached into her coat, and pressed a folded piece of paper into his hand. "Read it," she whispered. "Please." He unfolded it the moment she stepped off. It wasn't a note. It was coordinates. And 2 words. There. Doodle. That night Elijah didn't sleep. He couldn't. The coordinates matched nothing known publicly. But when he entered them into a university star mapping tool online, the screen zoomed past Earth, past the Moon, Mars, Jupiter, then kept going, and then blackness. No image. No data. Just the label. Classified, restricted access. And it didn't make sense. He was just a kid. He was good with computers, sure, always had a curiosity about space, even followed some fringe Reddit threads about HFY. Humanity. Fuck yeah stories, where humans were seen as unpredictable galactic wildcards. But this was something else. The next morning his school was quiet. Too quiet. His teacher, Ms. Thompson, glanced at him strangely. At lunch, the school security officer stood a little too long by his table, and when he got home, his mother looked pale, holding a package that had arrived addressed to no one. Just a handwritten scrawl across the box. Elijah Harris, don't let them silence you. Inside was a hard drive. It clicked into his laptop, with a soft hum, no label, just a single folder. Project Prometheus, he clicked and the universe blinked open. Footage. Not from Hollywood. Not CGI. Real video. Grainy, raw, terrifying. Alien cities crumbling beneath burning beams. A massive shadow descending over a sky with 3 moons. A creature. No eyes. Mouth wide with rows of shifting teeth. Screaming into a camera before the feed cut out. And through it all, one word repeated in a mechanical voice. Extermination. Elijah's hands shook. He clicked further. Blueprints, maps, documents stamped top secret. And a message, this time addressed directly to humanity. If you receive this, it means the Al-Khari are gone. We tried to fight. We failed. They are coming for you next. Do not negotiate. Do not run. You must fight. He looked up, heart racing, head spinning. The note, the coordinates, the hard drive, it wasn't random, it was a warning. And somehow he'd been chosen. He didn't tell his mother. Not yet. But he backed up the files, encrypted them, and uploaded them to an obscure Reddit thread, buried in the HFY subreddit. He titled it simply, "They Begged for Help." Within minutes, the post caught fire. Some laughed it off as an ARG. Others connected dots. A few believed. Within hours, the thread was gone, but it had already spread. Within a week, rogue scientists started asking questions on podcasts. By the end of the month, 2 whistleblowers were found dead. Both accidents. But humanity doesn't do silence very well, and it definitely doesn't do surrender. A secret coalition began to form. Not military, not political. Human. Across countries, across races, across borders, people who saw the truth, who felt the pull of that ancient instinct to survive. Engineers, biologists, hackers, soldiers, storytellers, and somewhere in a bunker under Washington, D.C., a retired general who had seen the files long before Elijah ever had leaned back in his chair and said one word, finally. But war is never simple, because when humanity reached the Al-Khari remnants, scattered, broken, barely alive, they saw something that turned everything upside down. The enemy wasn't alien. They looked human. Worse, they spoke Earth languages. They wore Earth metals. They bled red. And Elijah, now hunted, now hidden, now caught in the machinery of something far greater, realized the war wasn't just out there. It had already started here. He wasn't supposed to find the note. He wasn't supposed to get the drive. But somehow, the universe had made a choice, and humanity's response was going to shake the stars. He stared at the skies that night, the same way people had for centuries. Except this time, the stars didn't twinkle. They glared. The ground trembled. And somewhere, far beyond what telescopes could see, a fleet began to move. A voice echoed in his dreams that night, neither male nor female. It simply said, "You are the key. Run or rise." He woke up to sirens, and a black van parked outside his home. His mother screamed as the front door shattered. He reached for his backpack, the drive, and the note, and then everything went dark. To be continued. There was shouting, harsh, angry, voices that didn't match the neighborhood or the hour. Elijah blinked as blurry shapes moved through the smoke and flashing lights poured through the cracks in his bedroom door. He couldn't hear his mom anymore, just boots, heavy ones, coming, closer. He didn't have time to think, the hard drive was already in his bag. He grabbed his phone, the note, and climbed out the window. Not gracefully. His arm scraped against the gutter. His foot hit a trash can, but he didn't stop. He ran through backyards, past sleeping houses, fences, barking dogs. He didn't know where he was going. Just away. By the time the sun came up, Elijah was hiding in the back of an abandoned shed near the railroad tracks, breathing through his hoodie, shaking, and trying to stay warm. His phone had no signal. Not just bad bars. Nothing. No Wi-Fi. No service, no GPS. Blackout. They were scrubbing him. He thought about the van, the way it had sat too still, engine idling. He thought about how the men moved, not like police, but trained. Government, private. He had no answers, only questions, and a growing realization that this wasn't just about aliens or strange signals or a desperate plea for help. He was part of something much bigger now, and that terrified him. He pulled out the note again. Read the same 2 words over and over. They're real. The handwriting was steady, controlled, probably military, but definitely personal, not typed, not printed. Someone had written this knowing exactly what they were doing, and exactly who might follow. He remembered the woman on the bus. Her eyes. There was fear there, sure, but also urgency, like she didn't have much time, like she had chosen him, not at random, but deliberately. Why him? He wasn't a genius. He wasn't in any secret program or military family. Just a regular kid from Baltimore who liked space and read too many HFY Reddit threads. Maybe that was it. Maybe they needed someone no one would expect. Someone who could slip through the cracks. Someone who still believed that humans, just regular, ordinary humans, could change the world. His dad would have said something like that. Before he left. Elijah wiped his eyes and pulled the hard drive from his bag. No laptop now. He needed a connection. Somewhere off the grid. A place he hadn't visited in months but had always kept in the back of his mind. Junkyard John's. It wasn't a real junkyard, just the nickname for an old warehouse on the edge of the city, where an ex-con turned mechanic let neighborhood kids mess around with scrap tech as long as they didn't steal or talk too much. John had Wi-Fi, and cameras, and a thing about privacy. It took Elijah half the day to get there, walking alley to alley, ducking every drone and siren. The city felt different, too quiet, too clean. Like something had been scrubbed from the air along with his data. He kept expecting someone to grab him. No one did. John barely looked up when Elijah stepped inside, just grunted and pointed to the corner workbench. Elijah didn't ask for permission. He plugged in the drive, bypassed a few encryption layers, and opened a file labeled Eyes Only Alpha Class. What he saw made his skin crawl. Schematics for weapons, spacecraft, human spacecraft, ones that didn't match any known models, prototypes far beyond what Earth's public tech could build, notes on something called Project Eclipse, maps of alien terrain, and images of creatures chained and dissected, not monsters, not demons, people, the Alkari. They had long limbs, translucent skin, glowing veins like rivers of light. Their eyes were huge, like they saw things humans couldn't, and they looked afraid. Not dangerous, not hostile, just broken. Elijah kept clicking. One video showed a conference room, Earth generals arguing with scientists. "We don't have time to debate ethics," one of them shouted. "If they can terraform faster than us, we need to strip the planet first. Our survival comes first." "We came to help them," a woman said off-screen. "And now we're the ones invading." "That was never the plan," someone else said quietly. The feed cut out. The deeper Elijah went, the clearer it became. Humanity had responded to the Alkari's plea, but not with aid, with war. The official story had never made the news. All sanitized, buried under classified layers. The only traces were rumors, shadow leaks, fringe forums labeled conspiracy. But it was real. Earth hadn't just gone to help, it had gone to conquer. Elijah's breath caught when he opened one last file. It was a letter, unsigned, just a personal message tucked in the chaos. "If you're reading this, I'm probably gone. We tried to stop it, but the machine was too big. The lie was too clean. You won't be able to trust anyone, not governments, not media, maybe not even your own people. But there are others like you. Look for them. Don't let this die. In the dark, the truth has a price, but so does silence." Suddenly, the screen went black. The hard drive sparked and died fried. He hadn't backed it up. He stood there, stunned, heart pounding. John appeared behind him, arms crossed. "You brought fire in here, kid," he said, "and someone's gonna follow the smoke." Elijah looked at him, panic rising. "They're coming for me." John didn't ask why, didn't ask what. Just handed him a burner phone, a USB with a strange logo and a key. "Back door leads to the storm drains. Use the tunnels, go east. There's a woman named Mira near Camden. Tell her you saw the stars blink." Elijah didn't know what that meant, but John's face was grim. He didn't argue. As he left, the old man whispered, "God help us all." In the tunnels, the cold pressed in. Water dripped from rusted pipes. Rats scurried. Elijah kept moving, heart pounding, lungs burning. The city above moved on, unaware. But down here he could feel something shifting, like a weight pressing, down from space itself. He wasn't just running from men in suits anymore. He was running from the truth, from what it meant for humanity, from what it meant for him. And as the darkness closed in around him, Couldn't stop asking the question that haunted every step. What if they were right? What if we weren't the heroes? What if we were the monsters? To be continued. Elijah's shoes splashed through the shallow runoff in the storm drain as he followed the barely visible arrows scratched into the concrete walls. He didn't know how long he had been walking. Minutes felt like hours. The tunnels twisted beneath the city like veins, and every turn felt like a test of trust. Was Mira real? Was this all a trap? His mind kept circling the same fears, but one thing was clear. He couldn't go back. The truth had already claimed him. Above ground, across the city, agents in black vans were tearing through neighborhoods. They weren't flashing badges. They didn't ask questions. They just entered homes, disconnected routers, confiscated laptops. The cover story was a cybersecurity operation. No one questioned it. Most people never even heard about it. And those who did thought it was just another routine sweep. Only a few, tucked in the edges of society, knew what they were really cleaning up. In a dark surveillance room across the country, a woman named Captain Adrienne Vale watched the reports stream in. Her face was calm, but her eyes were tired. She had spent years keeping this quiet, making sure the war never reached public ears. But now, some teenager had cracked it open. Not a whistleblower, not a hacker, just a boy who gave up his seat on a bus. She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Find him?" she said to the man beside her. "Before the others do." "Others?" he asked. Vale didn't look at him. "You think we're the only ones paying attention?" Meanwhile, deep in the tunnels, Elijah finally saw light ahead. Not sunlight, electric, artificial. As he stepped into the opening, his eyes adjusted and he found himself in a forgotten subway station. Rusted signs, cracked tiles, and a single figure standing under a flickering bulb. Mira. She was older than he expected. Late 40s, maybe 50s. Tough. Her coat was patched with different materials and she wore a device on her wrist that blinked softly in rhythm with her breath. She didn't smile, just stared at him, as if measuring something beyond words. "You saw the stars blink?" she asked. He nodded, breathing hard. She reached out and touched his chest lightly. Her fingers glowed faintly where they met his shirt. "You're late," she whispered. Before he could ask what she meant, she turned and gestured for him to follow. As they moved deeper into the abandoned platform, Elijah began to notice others, people, watching from the shadows. Teenagers, veterans, former scientists. All of them quiet. All of them wired with old tech and sharp eyes. It was a network. A ghost net. People who had slipped off the grid and chosen to live in the cracks between the systems. "They call us the fracture," Mira said, "because that's what we are, splinters from the lie, survivors of the truth." Elijah followed her into a control room lit with old monitors and maps. On the walls were images of the Al-Khari, not as enemies, not as targets, but as refugees, children, elders, wounded soldiers. Some of them looking up in hope, others crumpled beneath human boots. "We got their signal 5 years ago," Mira said. "Not the one that reached the satellites, the real one. A message buried inside the waveform, something only analog receivers could catch. It wasn't just a call for help, it was a confession." Elijah frowned. "Confession?" "They didn't. Just ask for aid. They warned us." She showed him the recording. The alien voice was soft, musical, but the translation scrolled across the screen in blocky white text. "Humanity. You are not alone, but not all who stand with you come in peace. The stars have teeth. We fled a war you cannot win alone." Elijah stared at the screen. "But if they were warning us, why did we invade them?" Mira looked away. "Because the wrong people got the signal first." The conflict was deeper than he imagined. Earth hadn't just responded with force because of fear. It had been a choice. A strategic one, resources, territory, technology. There were factions on Earth who believed that the Al-Khari's desperation made them weak. An opportunity. They called it a preventative strike. But the fracture knew better. The war had never been about defense. It was about control. And worse, there was now a second signal. One even darker. Mira led him to another console. The waveform on this one pulsed violently, off rhythm, corrupted. This came through a month ago, she said. It's not the Alkari. Elijah felt his stomach tighten. The screen showed nothing, but static. But the sound. The sound was something else, like whispers inside a thunderstorm, like grief turned into radio waves. It's a counter-broadcast, Mira said. Something's answering the original call, and it's not happy. Elijah looked at her. You mean another species? She nodded. Something worse, something old. The Alkari weren't just running from war, they were running from them. That changed everything. If Earth had attacked the Alkari, if they'd pushed them into open space, into deeper corners of the galaxy, then maybe they'd force them into the path of something far worse. Something watching, waiting. Elijah's mind raced. The pieces were falling together in terrible patterns. Earth had fired the first shot, not just in a war between species, but in a war it didn't understand. A war it may have already lost and didn't even know it. But then Mira showed him something that made it all personal again. A photo. His mother, smiling, standing with Mira, holding a data slate. She helped. Mira said softly. She didn't tell you because it would have put you in danger, but she believed in this, in the truth. She was trying to get this to someone who would listen. Elijah's throat tightened. Is she? We don't know, Mira said. They took her when the blackout started, but she fought and she left clues for you. The note, the drive, the message on the bus. None of it had been accidental. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed through the tunnels. Everyone froze. A voice rang out, distorted by a bullhorn. This is Captain Adrian Vale. We know you're harboring a fugitive. Surrender, the boy. Now. Mira's team scattered. Someone handed Elijah a headset. Another pulled a cover over the monitors. Lights dimmed. The entire network shifted into defense mode like they'd practiced this 100 times. They found us faster than I thought, Mira said grimly. Elijah's hands shook. What do we do? She stared at him. You decide. We can run. Or we can show them what humanity really looks like. He swallowed hard. Outside, footsteps approached. The sound of weapons being readied echoed like thunder through the tunnels. And in the distance, behind it all, the signal pulsed again. It was getting louder, and it wasn't done with humanity yet. Elijah pressed his back to the cold concrete wall as the footsteps grew louder, heavier, more determined. His heart pounded against his ribs like it was trying to escape. Around him, the fracture members moved silently, each with their own task, some sealing off old access tunnels, others rigging decoys to confuse thermal scanners. It was organized chaos, but beneath it all was fear. Not the fear of dying, but the fear of being erased, silenced. Mira handed Elijah a small metal device. It looked like nothing more than a piece of junk, but when he turned it over, the underside blinked softly. It was pulsing in time with the alien signal again. That's a decoder, she said, voice low but steady. It's what your mother was building. She believed the second signal wasn't just a warning. It's a map. Elijah's hands trembled, slightly as he stared at it. A map to what? Either salvation or the source of it all, she replied. But we haven't been able to finish decoding it. That drive you carry, it has the last encryption key. He looked down at the flash drive, suddenly heavy in his pocket. So small, so ordinary. But now he realized what it held wasn't just alien tech or intelligence. It was a choice, one that might change everything. Outside the tunnels, Captain. Adrian Vale's voice called out again, echoing louder now through a bullhorn. You're surrounded. There's no exit. Step forward with the boy and no one gets hurt. A lie. Everyone in that tunnel knew how this ended if they complied. Mira clenched her jaw and activated a scrambled comlink. Team Alpha, position? She whispered. A, voice replied in her ear. Holding at Tunnel 3. Thermal cams showed 10 hostiles, possibly more. Elijah didn't understand everything, but he knew enough now. He was the key to something much bigger than himself. The Alkari had begged for help. Humanity had answered with total war. And now the universe was listening, watching, maybe judging. But who was humanity, really? The ones who crushed desperate voices under boots and bureaucracy, or the ones who hid in shadows, preserving truth piece by piece? Elijah thought of that moment on the bus, when he gave up his seat. It had felt like such a small human gesture, politeness, kindness. But looking back now, that moment was a signal too, one that rippled forward, echoing across worlds. Mira turned to him. "We need to move. The fallback points across the chamber through the old filtration shaft, but they'll be waiting at the entrance." "What if we don't go through the front?" Elijah asked suddenly. She blinked. "You have a better idea?" "Maybe," he said, pointing to the old maintenance crawl spaces that lined the walls. "If we split, send decoys, they might follow the wrong signals." Mira gave a short nod, impressed. "You're thinking like one of us already." As they set their plan in motion, the tension tightened like a coil. Elijah moved with 3 others through a shaft no wider than his shoulders, his knees scraping the floor, breathing shallow to stay quiet. They couldn't afford to be found, not yet. Not with the decoder and the drive in hand. Above them, Vale's agents breached the main platform with flashbangs and weapons drawn. Shouts filled the air, metal against concrete. But when they stormed the room, they found only old screens running on loop and a cracked map of the galaxy marked with glowing pins. The real targets were already gone. Vale cursed under her breath. "Track them, don't lose the boy." She knew what he was carrying, not just files, not just secrets. Proof. Proof that Earth had lied, that the war had been one-sided, that humanity had chosen dominance over decency, and now, someone out there, someone older, darker, was answering back. As Elijah and his team emerged in the lower chamber, they met up with Mira and the rest of the fracture at the fallback point. The space looked like an old power substation, but at its center stood a strange object, round, smooth, pulsing softly with light from within. It wasn't human-made. It didn't even look Alkari. It was ancient, alive almost. "This is where the signal's pulling us," Mira said. "It's like it's listening, waiting." Elijah stepped closer. The device reacted instantly, glowing brighter, warmer. Everyone around him gasped. Mira stared, speechless. "It synced with you," she whispered. Suddenly, a warning crackled through the comms. "They found us. 60 seconds, maybe less." Elijah didn't move. His hand hovered over the device, heart thudding. He knew instinctively, once he touched it with the drive, something would happen. Maybe a transmission, maybe a message, maybe a weapon. Behind him, Mira gripped her earpiece. "We're out of time!" And then, gunfire. Close. The agents were breaching again. Elijah looked at Mira. She didn't say anything, but her eyes said everything. This is the moment. The chamber filled with tension like static before a lightning strike. The walls trembled. Voices shouted. Boots pounded, and the device hummed louder now. It wanted to speak. The universe was about to answer.